Welcome to the latest episode of Papal Profiles. In this episode, we look at one of the most interesting figures in Christian history, Gregory the Great. Gregory is interesting for many reasons. One, because he was the Pope who witnessed the last gasp of Roman rule, and two, because he thoroughly rewrote the history of Christianity to include the importance and primacy of the Bishop of Rome in the early centuries of the Church. Gregory was the son of a senator and had been a Roman prefect, and his papacy coincided with the last days of the Roman Senate, of which the last mention was made in 603 in the Gregorian Register, and by 630 Pope Honorius had the Senate House turned into a church. Into the vacuum of secular rule stepped a very able administrator. Gregory stepped into the civic void and took steps in the defense of the city, taking control of imperial garrisons, appointing officers, and paying the troops from church coffers. He also oversaw a peace deal with the Lombards separate from the Byzantine court in Ravenna, extending the Vatican's reach beyond the spiritual realm and further establishing the papacy as a force in political matters. Gregory also sent the mission that began the conversion of Britannia in what McCulloch states was a critical turning point for the Latin Church. The shift in focus away from the East, from Byzantine imperial oversight and Greek Christians, and with the loss of North African churches to the Muslim conquest in the decades following Gregory's death, meant the papacy came to be unchallenged in Northern and Western Europe as it created a new Roman Empire with the Church as the center. In a letter to Patriarch John in Constantinople, Gregory asserted that the Pope has the power to annul councils, and only with the consent of Rome are any issued canons valid. An interesting side note is that the Latin Church did not send any bishops to the Council of Constantinople in 381, and only sent 5 bishops to Nicaea, so Gregory's attitude is a prime example of the retroactive reimagination of Vatican influence and power that had come to pervade the papal mindset, and is representative of his belief in the primacy of the Roman See, which he thought had authority over all of Christendom. Related to Gregory's attitude of Roman primacy was his program of selectively rewriting Christian history in Western Europe in order to gloss over the Vatican's lack of importance in the early eras, and as had happened previously with the legends in the Acts of Sylvester. Increasingly alienated and isolated from the Greek East, the Pope was free to rewrite church history to demonstrate the Vatican's centrality and its role in the creation of orthodoxy, ignoring the Greek origins of the Church and the role of the emperors in the councils. It is a simple fact that all of the major councils were convened by an emperor and not the bishops, and certainly not the popes, and all were held in the eastern Greek-speaking cities. That the Trinitarian status declared orthodox at Nicaea was enforced by the whim of Constantine, that it was not the majority opinion of Christian priests and bishops, and that its canonical orthodoxy wavered over time with succeeding emperors, is almost wholly unknown by most modern Christians. To demonstrate just how successful the Vatican's rewriting of its history has been, in 2018, CNN aired a disgracefully biased series on the history of the papacy that was entirely lacking in any journalistic integrity and woefully short on historical facts, yet overflowing with Catholic propaganda. In The Pope, the Most Powerful Man in History, the narrator Liam Neeson regurgitated his scripted lines to spew a flagrant misrepresentation of history that entirely overlooked the early Greek history of Christianity.
As Rome falls and Constantinople flourishes, much of the Church's terminology becomes Greek instead of Latin.
This shamefully inaccurate statement glosses over the fact that the New Testament books were all written in Greek and misses the blatantly obvious that the term for anointed or Messiah is Christos in Greek. Historian Charles Freeman writes that the political aspects of Christian doctrine had been so successfully expunged as to be virtually ignored in most Western histories, after Gregory the Great removed the emperor's role when rewriting the history. Freeman continued, noting that as late as 1988, the assertion by theologian Richard Hanson in his book The Search for the Christian Doctrine of God that emperors played the primary role in establishing orthodoxy was labeled provocative, despite being supported by a mass of historical evidence. The foundations of medieval papal authority had been laid leading up to Gregory, and for the next 1,000 years, Western European Christians accepted the notions of Roman authority that had emerged from the lies, forgeries, and declarations of primacy. Fiction had become fact, and Freeman notes that Vatican propaganda was so successful in erasing the role of the Greeks in early Christianity that many Western Christians still believed this sanitized version, and examples can still be found of how the Eastern Christians broke away from the authority of Rome, such as we saw in the CNN video. Thanks for watching. Please check out the other videos on my channel if history is your thing, and see you next time.